Team Gravity presents Fight Night.
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fight Night number 30. I know there's a lot of StarCraft action going on, so thank you all very much for tuning in for some fantastic show matches tonight. Of course, I'm Cybert. Joining me here is Drennick. How are you doing tonight, man?
Well, I'm doing pretty well, Cybert. Really stoked for the games tonight. We got 3 fantastic show matches going on, and they look really good.
Going to be starting off the night with Fiasco versus JimRising, a PVZ.
Yeah, and then next we got the Pili Pili versus Intense. That'll be a PVT. That should be exciting.
To finish off the night, the main event, as you guys are probably aware, the best of 7 match for, of course, 80 of the $100. It's going to be Bong Bong versus Major, a ZVT to finish out the night. And Drennick, I don't know if you noticed this, you probably did, but we have got all of the matchups here on display, discounting, of course, mirror matchups.
Ooh, that looks incredibly cool. I'm liking all the little graphics that Team Gravity always puts together, and it's always really cool. A lot of effort put into this, so just shout out to that. And, of course, our lovely observer for tonight, Hawkeye, by the way, guys. Thumbs up to him.
Yep, we cannot really understate the streamer and observer, the production man working behind the scenes who doesn't get the love that he deserves. So a big thank you to him. And, of course, throughout the night, our presentation will be made infinitely better by him, because I don't know about you, Drennick, but my observing skills, not good at all. It's probably like Bronze League observing.
Yeah, you could say that maybe about yours, Cybert. I don't know. I have not viewed it that much. I before done the dreaded solo cast and observe, and I have respect now. I have that deep respect that I'm like, this is really hard, very hard.
It's kind of interesting coming from some other games where that's the only option into a place like StarCraft 2, where there actually is teams set up for doing this sort of thing, which is always a lot of fun.
Definitely.
Now, early on, right at the beginning of the broadcast, you guys may have mentioned, or may have noticed, rather, or maybe you weren't tuned in just yet, that this is Fight Night number 30. And, of course, Fight Night is brought to you by the fine folks over at Hitbox TV. That's twitter.com/HitboxLive if you want to hit them up there. And 30 times 100 equals, no math on stream, but $3,000 that has been doled out into the pockets of StarCraft 2 players. And for that, we have to say thank you to Hitbox, because it's not like a formal tournament. It's just fun show matches, which we get to see awesome personality from players and awesome games every week. So a big thank you to Hitbox and, of course, all the guys at the Team Gravity side of things. As you mentioned, the graphics, but there's a lot of player coordination and management that goes into in between the show matches, making them happen. So a big thank you to the people working behind the scenes. But there is one more organization that we have to thank, and that is, of course, Spawning Tool. You can check them out, twitter.com/Spawning Tool. Drennick, I'm curious, have you checked out Spawning Tool at all?
I have actually checked out a lot about Spawning Tool, and I've even talked to the creators of it for a while about how you can just make it better, make that information more easy to understand to the people using it. If you guys don't know how to use Spawning Tool or never heard of it before, you can upload your replays, or even more than uploading your replays, you can just look at other people's replays, not look at their replays, but you can look at their build orders, things like that. And basically what Spawning Tool does, that's spawningtool.com, is you can track the meta, which is one of the coolest things ever, and it just categorizes games so you can say, you know what, I want a game where Cybert does a 1-gate fast expand and loses. And oh, cool. 1-gate fast expand Cybert and he loses. So, fantastic.
It's a very popular search on the service, but I was actually just poking around earlier today. You can upload replays and immediately see results, i.e. build orders of both the of both people's playing, without creating an account. You literally go to the website, click a few buttons, and then upload your replay. And it's like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to set up an account, verify anything. It's super easy to use if you guys want to do that. And of course, if you use it in conjunction with some other web tools, you can learn a lot about your own play. And of course, as Drennick will tell you, self-improvement and being able to, make yourself a little bit better can be that step up from, say, Diamond to Masters. You'd know a bit about that, wouldn't you?
Yep, I've been grinding my way, and one also really helpful, cool thing it can do is if you're looking for build orders from the pros, you can search only pros, and then as he was mentioning, I'm trying to get to Masters, okay? I want a perfected four-gate, whatever comes into that. You can look it up and just get the build orders from the pros exactly how they've done it.
Very, very detailed. You can also split it up between like time code or supply. Personally, I find supply very nice to look at for most things. Some things I like looking at time code. But heading into game number 1, our first match, as we mentioned before, it's a best of 5. Fiasco versus JimRising, a Protoss versus Zerg. JimRising, one of those returning Fight Night players. He's featured, I'd say, probably once every 3 to 4 weeks, it seems. And it's like sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses, but usually he's able to show some pretty good games. Usually he's able to bring that aggression, show a lot of action. And Fiasco, he's a player that personally we don't know a lot about. What do you know, Drennick?
Well, as you mentioned, he is a Protoss player, and actually, he's from Germany and plays for the hosts of these show matches. He is a part of Team Gravity.
So we are going to see if there's any of that gravity magic that can somehow work its way into this best of 5 series to allow Fiasco to win. But I don't know. Like JimRising, he's the name that we recognize. He's the player that we've seen time and time again. He's one of the best in sort of the Latin American scene. I know Major tends to give him a pretty difficult time, but Major is also one of those players who's going to be playing tonight. And Major, a fantastic non-Korean player as well. So JimRising can definitely show some good games. And one other thing is that these guys, they're going to be playing for $10. Our other best of 5, Peely Peely Intense, they're going to be playing for $10. But Major and Bong Bong will be playing for $80. That's $60 to the winner, $20 to the loser.
Yeah, definitely a nice little chunk of cash for any of the winners here. And then in the just the biggest show match of the night, both players will walk away with a nice lump sum. But the very first match tonight, as you mentioned, will be a PvZ, Fiasco versus JimRising, on Bridgehead. Now, Bridgehead is, I don't want to say one of the newer maps. It is new, but players have had time to kind of analyze it, look at it, and it always poses interesting strategy in general from the Zerg player in ZVP and also from the Protoss play. You really have to think outside the box because it's not a standard layout. So I'm excited, as you were saying, JimRising, one of the best in the Latin American scene, to see how he's really going to play and toy with this map against a relatively unknown player.
I'm sure there's lots of guys who do know Fiasco. As you mentioned, he's a German Protoss, so maybe in the German scene he's a bit bit more well-known. Personally, I don't follow the German scene particularly closely, so
why not? It's fantastic.
I'm sure it is fantastic. There certainly have been some very good StarCraft 2 German pros to come out of the scene. And we're going to be jumping into game number 1. There's so many choices to make on Bridgehead with the backdoor kind of natural. The rocks there, we've seen lots of, I don't know about lots, but we certainly have seen proxy hatches become a thing on this map. So not 100% sure how this all is going to play out. Fiasco, we've mentioned it a couple times. We're not particularly familiar with his play. Maybe he's a particularly cheesy or aggressive player, but we are going to be finding out as we jump into game number 1. It's the start of Team Gravity's Fight Night number 30. Ladies and gentlemen, on the right side of Bridgehead, our purple Protoss player, this is Team Gravity's Fiasco.
And his opponent on the left side hand of Bridgehead, on the left side hand, I don't know how that worked, but on the left hand side of Bridgehead, it is the red Zerg player from Brawl Esports. Give it up for JimRising. On the left side hand, I can't even articulate how I messed it up. Wow. I can't even articulate it, but something went wrong.
Something felt desperately weird to me, actually
Yeah.
introducing the players, as I got to say the team and the player name, because I've been casting ASL where we don't get to say the teams and the players, so that definitely is a little bit weird going back into that mode. But, Drunick, provide me with some thoughts about Bridgehead. It's very, very weird, and I know that we've seen some very odd games in WCS, Pro League, and GSL. Do you have any kind of thoughts on this map one way or the other?
Well, generally in ZVP, it provides a number of interesting choices for the Zerg player. Like you were mentioning, you can take your third base as your natural. You can work on these back rocks. And because of the nature of this map, obviously, it's hard for the Protoss player to deal with these back rocks, since there is no ramp, nothing going to that natural in-base expansion. And so if potentially the Zerg gets in there, something happens like that, it's very hard to deal with it because you have no beautiful spot to force field, nothing like that. Thankfully, at least for now, JimRising is not doing anything crazy. Definitely as a Protoss player myself, I get really nervous on this map against Zerg just because so many little things can go wrong.
So many little things can indeed go wrong, but you'll have a better shot at analyzing those things if you, of course, check out spawningtool.com. Now, as we're getting into this game number 1, we do indeed have to request that you guys watching through Team Liquid, if it's embedded over there, that you click on through to Hitbox for a couple of reasons. Number 1, we got the awesome Hitbox chat, which you're getting left out of if you're not actually here on the site. And that's, of course, hitbox.tv/teamgravity. But there's also, and this is probably my favorite feature of Hitbox, is just the inbuilt polls, because it's one of those things that ordinarily has to be handled through a third-party tool, but on Hitbox, it's built in. And so, as you'll see throughout the night, things will be updated with those polls. Sometimes it'll be like, who do you think's going to win this game? Sometimes it's who do you think's going to win this series? And the Team Gravity guys keep that up to date pretty regularly. So definitely click on through and come over to hitbox.tv/teamgravity.
Personally, I love those GIFs you can actually post in chat and the pictures. You don't need to post a link and everyone's like, should I click on this? I don't know. For now though, JimRising will get a nice scout off onto Fiasco, and back at home just saying, you know what, I'm getting my metabolic boost, I'm going to play it safe, get that speed up to deny anything from my opponent. Sadly, Fiasco will push out that Overlord from his main base with the Sentry. Mothership core is down, and beautiful. Sentry gets there just in time to deny the Lings.
3 bases going to be coming on up for JimRising. As you did mention, he does have Zergling speed on the way, and that's really been the primary source of his tech. He has not been dumping gas into a super fast layer. We've seen 2-base Muta be very prominent in a number of matchups, but in this particular case, you know, he's going to be mixing things up from that kind of standpoint. Additional gateways going to be going on. I believe, Drunick, you did mention the back rocks and how they can cause some trouble for Protoss players. So Fiasco's like, well, if I just build another wall off, that's like double the rocks.
Yeah,
Justin
almost double the rocks. I believe the rocks are 2,000, so it's like 1/4 of a wall. I don't know that those buildings, but it is nice for Protoss, allowing your sentries, those force fields, to be a little bit more useful defending the back of the base. For now, though, it's a stage of the game where Fiasco actually does not know yet what JimRising here is doing. His Phoenix will scout it, while on the other hand of what you're seeing, JimRising kind of has has come up a blank scouting Fiasco here, because he's only seen pretty much the normal stuff. So both players now are kind of flying in the blind. Fiasco finally does get his scout.
Yep, it does get sniped down right there, as you guys saw. The Queen's, of course, running defense. Couple of lanes going to try to bust into the main, but Fiasco, you know, he may be an unknown German player to us, but he's no scrub. He's not going to let Lings just run by easy peasy into his main layer. Going to be finishing up relatively soon from JimRising. He's also going to be adding on at least 1 extra gas in his main. Definitely very delayed gases as he starts to add them on to his natural as well. So he's starting to amp up that gas production. We got the Twilight Council also going to be coming in. Very early forge from Fiasco. comparatively to what we see from a lot of other Protoss players, where they much prefer the Twilight, getting out Blink a lot more quickly. In this case, he's really been pumping out that Forge, the +1 attack, nearly complete.
Yeah, even though Blink is so versatile, I like the early +1 attack, and I like the Forge purely because third base is also on this map hard to take as Protoss. You have two gigantic ways into it, so really that Forge, you can throw down some cannons, get some nice defense up if you feel like you need that if you're playing against an aggressive Zerg. Interestingly enough, from JimRising though, it looks like he's going for Roach push, but also getting Burrow.
Burrow, one of those upgrades that I always love to see on the production tab. First couple of Roaches going to be out on the field. Got 5 more on the way, so he's going for 7 out of the initial batch. It's not a huge commitment just yet. Normally, oh, well, never mind. He tacks on the additional Roaches, taking us well past that 10 mark, which is like usually when I see Zerg players going 10, there's some sort of impending attack that they want to go for.
Yeah, definitely. Before that 10 mark, or even on the mark of about 10 Roaches, it's kind of, you know what, I want to feel safe. If my opponent has a big all-in whatever, I need just enough to buy me time to push out the huge swell of Roaches you often see. For now, though, the Lings, actually, of JimRising in the top right, have providing a little bit of a scary difficulty for Fiasco. They've ran in once, and Fiasco knows they're there. If he pulls back to defend this attack, coming from JimRising, it could prove disastrous for this third base.
JimRising going to start to work on the rocks with his Roaches. These Roaches soon will have +1, and not too long after that, they're going to have Tunneling Claws. Keep in mind, the Hydra Den and the Hatchery are going to be coming up, as well as a big round of drones just finished a couple of moments ago for JimRising. So he certainly isn't going super hardcore with the aggression. He's going to be backing on, off. And you did mention the Lings earlier. They weren't able to get too much accomplished just yet.
Yeah, even though not a lot of things were killed in that attack by JimRising, he was able to remove the rocks and just providing more attack avenues across this map. I love that he took the bottom left-hand base. It really gives him a nice springboard into the bottom right-hand base of Fiasco here. But for now, it looks like JimRising, he's just trying to take map control, get his upgrades going, and hopefully soon he's going to make just a big push with Tunneling Claws, Burrow, and +2 attack.
This is getting to the point where it's just about a timing, as I'm assuming these Roaches are going to burrow. And no, they're just going for the pylon kill. Going to be able to stop the warp in as well. And now this one single cannon is not going to be enough to stop these Roaches. At the same time, at the third, more Roaches going to be distracting pretty much the entire army of Fiasco. There's the Burrow and the Tunneling Claws actually being used. Looks like 5 Stalkers were pulled into the natural expansion to try to deal with these Roaches. And the attack at the third has been deflected.
That third base has been deflected, but there's still Roaches in the natural base of cannons are not done yet, so they're not going to be at least spottable, at least for now. JimRising beautifully spreading Roaches across the map, but is going in for another push, and the army at the natural base isn't an army. It's just 2 haphazard warp-ins, so not quite the best composition to defend.
Now Roach is going to be sandwiching in from the north and the south. Stalkers trying to blink away, but some of the probes are going to be paying the cost here. Relatively low probe kills thus far, but of course these Stalkers getting trapped is never a good thing. More and more probes getting eliminated, but now the majority of the army for Fiasco is finally here. JimRising forced to burrow, and he's going to be able to run away. Nearly 20 probes killed in that little attack.
Yeah, 20 workers down at the moment. It is 39 workers of our Protoss to the 76 of JimRising. A fantastic economy. And remember, when those Roaches burrow, they do heal, so there's going to be more options. But now at the third base, actually, JimRising pressuring it into it, and I don't think Fiasco can defend this. He does teleport back home, but already a lot of damage being inflicted.
With +2 finishing up and a huge swell of 20-something Roaches just finishing, this attack from JimRising had better not do too much damage from Fiasco's point of view, because he's going to have a lot more units to deal with, and he can't deal with this few units. He has hardly a hope of dealing with the next couple of waves. Into the main base go the Roaches, and Fiasco desperately just trying to deal with these attacks, but he can't.
GG.
JimRising takes game number 1 of our first best of 5 of Team Gravity's Fight Night number 30. He's looking strong. That Roach attack was not stopping anytime soon. And on top of that, he was going into Hive. He was looking towards those later game options as well.
Yeah, definitely. JimRising, he got Hive on the way. He even had Infestation Pit if his attack was rebuked and pushed back. But we all know it didn't. As I was mentioning, you have a vertical setup of your bases as Protoss on Bridgehead makes it hard to defend and just multiple attack paths everywhere. The early takedown of those rocks by JimRising Roaches just provided getting later and later into the game more opportunity to harass, which he geared up for perfectly. Tunneling Claws and Burrow. As you mentioned, Cybert, they're really cool to watch and honestly just kind of tick off other players when you don't quite have all the observers, all the cannons out on the map.
It did certainly help pick apart Fiasco in this particular case. We may be jumping directly into Terraform, as that is map number 2. Now, in the way the map vetoes work, and with the way that we have kind of an NA server player and an EU server player, we may end up going over to Europe. Yeah, I think we're going over to Europe. So it will be just a slight delay in actually getting this next game up, but the loser does get to pick which server they would like to play on. And as you mentioned, the Burrow and the Tunneling Claws becoming a big part of that game. He had a lot of observers, he had cannons, but he just surely didn't have the sheer numbers that he needed to deal with all of those roaches.
Yeah, definitely. Just roach pushes are really scary because it's only roaches. And yes, you can counter it, but again, it's against a Protoss force where you're really gearing up to have, you want your big money units, your Immortals, your Colossi. But versus an opponent that the push is just, it's purely one unit. And with Burrow, they heal themselves. So it provides endless harassment opportunity where it's, I don't want to say very little micro at all. It is a lot of micro, but it's not as if you're relying off one unit. Your entire army itself is that beautiful unit that you can get the harassment done against a Protoss player.
Whether it's harassment or a full-out attack, the Roach in the hands of JimRising does pretty darn well. So I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious because with the way the map picks work, I don't know if you saw the kind of chat between the two players, but our German player, Fiasco, was very determined. He was just like, okay, so I'll pick trash maps when I'm going to be playing on NA. Like, I'm more worried about the games that I'm playing on EU just because of the ping. So hopefully here we're going to see a much better Fiasco. Game number 1, he can kind of slide that away. Just like, all right, I was playing on the NA server. Yeah. Maybe he doesn't even like Bridgehead as a map. He's probably a bit more comfortable on Terraform. It's one of the maps in the current pool that a lot of people kind of side towards. And certainly they're not necessarily choosing Dash and Terminal ahead of Terraform, so they should be both familiar with it. And now we're back onto the grounds of Fiasco. He's going to be a bit more comfortable, have a bit less lag, so we'll see. You know, maybe he'll do better here.
Yeah, definitely. In Bridgehead, yes, you can do some kind of crazy gateway shenanigans sometimes, but more and more in best of 5s, best of 7s, when it's not a best of 3, you generally see players saying, you know what, I don't want to play in this map. If it comes down, it's 2-2, and one of us has to take that third win. They like getting rid of those kind of trashy, as you're mentioning, maps beforehand to get to the more balanced, well-known.
That's always a risk that you take if you end up, you know, choosing those more balanced, well-known maps a little bit later. Sometimes you can get thrown off earlier on. Terraform is going to be our game number 2, and JimRising leading with that 1-point advantage. The onus is kind of on him to be like, no, it's not just the NA server advantage. I can kill you over on EU as well. This may be your home territory, but I don't even care. I'm just gonna kill you either way. And we'll have to see the man who is currently down 0-1 in this best of 5. For game number 2, we have our purple Protoss player. This is Team Gravity's Fiasco.
And his opponent. In the top left-hand corner, the pink Zerg currently up in this best of 5. From Brawl Esports, give it up for JimRising, representing Mexico.
Brawl Esports, definitely one of those teams that may not be on the highest tier, but man, they do have some good players.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of kind of smaller teams that have got players as they've developed and have become more staples in the StarCraft scene, and then say, you know what, they were with us first. They're sticking with us. They're good.
Hmm.
But before we get into the meat of this game, I just wanted to point out I really love Terraform, even in PvZ, just because of the plethora of attack avenues, which, from Protoss, you can provide some cool kind of all-in ways. But as Zerg, it really allows you to hit multiple points at a time and punish your opponent. They can teleport back home, but you can still get out, you can get through these, I want to call them alleyways, I guess, but you really can utilize a quick, fast harassment army like those roaches on a map like Terraform quite well.
With the 2 gold bases, that also opens up some opportunities for both players as well. We've seen in the past, I know I'm thinking of some GSL games that the gold bases have been used a bit deviously, you could say. No real shenanigans going on so far in these particular games. We had very vanilla openings last time and this time as well. 15 pool, 15 hatch. Not a huge surprise coming out from JimRising, but Fiasco, I mean, he's not doing anything terribly crazy. Just gateway expand.
Yeah, Fiasco just getting up his economy. You need that 2-base economy on this map. But the opening to the natural base for both of these players is a lot larger than most 2-player maps. So they got to be careful about those all-ins, whether it be Roach, Immortal Sentry, something like that. For now, though, Fiasco still doesn't have any wall, but it's fine. As you mentioned, Cybert, JimRising and both these players pretty much opening vanilla. Neither of them showing too much aggression or too much economy, just kind of saying, you know what, this is the second game, let's just do this simple.
Nice and easy, keeping with the macro. I would be a little bit disappointed if we didn't see any cheesy games here on Team Gravity's Fight Night. Normally we're kind of almost blessed with a plethora of strategies. We've got a couple of cheeses here and there, some nice macro games. And for now, it is looking certainly towards that macro orientation. As you mentioned, there's still lots of 2-base all-ins that you can go for. First couple of lings, they're going probe hunting, and that's first blood.
Yep, first blood is to, I guess, Fiasco lost that probe right there, but he got a little bit of the scout, yet it sometimes can be an unnerving scout. We obviously saw that, you know what, there's nothing there, but he did not get that, he actually did get a good look into the main, but that was only after, or that was before he actually went in for that second time. So, still a little unnerving. Generally, as a Zerg player, you don't quite pick your tech paths yet. For now, though, JimRising is just making sure Fiasco isn't doing anything crazy, because only now is he actually getting a nice look into the main base.
JimRising certainly is going to be happy that he's not seen any shenanigans or anything that's too silly. And it does look like it's storming outside of my window, so I guess if I end up losing electricity, which has happened, if I drop from the game randomly, I probably lost electricity. Just a kind of heads up. Hopefully, we don't have any problems lacking out the game or anything like that. That would be terrible. However, coming up, third base on the way for JimRising. Still not a huge commitment to tech from Fiasco. But again, this is somewhat similar to the previous game where he wasn't going for super fast blink or anything particularly aggressive. He was more willing to bide his time. There's the Forge coming down once again. Very, very similar to last game.
Yeah, Fiasco is willing to, you know what, take a little bit of time to get into a more macro position, which I'm sure he likes. And as any Protoss player, when you get to just the staple tech units, well, really, he was unable to achieve last game. So if he's going to be able to get it this game because of JimRising's strategy. Now, he's gone for a decently quick 3 bases, not horrendously quick, but still 3 bases, and is now going up to layer. This has all the potential of pushing out a ton of more roaches, hydras, just a lot of different types of things. There's the roach warren just finishing, but Fiasco's got to be really careful here because he seems to like surviving off of gateway units, which just do not quite cut it unless you have GSL blink play.
Yeah, if your name's not parting, maybe think about investing in some other tech. We do have the Robo going to be coming down in just a couple of moments, which of course the Robo facility being scouted by the Overlord. A little bit annoying, but to be expected And I'm really curious what exactly is going to be the change of pace for Fiasco. He's getting his Twilight Council in his third base, going to be coming in. The Hydra Den, I feel like this is the bit quicker than it was in the previous game. So JimRising might be kind of mixing things up from what we saw last time.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. JimRising Game 1 kind of decided to go for Infestation Pit after a while as his next tech choice. But the Roach Hydra, it provides a lot more DPS, but also it's a little bit... I don't want to put this... It's not necessarily all in. Game 1 wasn't all in, but it's a little bit more versatile. And you can transition into a lot of things. Sadly, it's not Legacy of the Void where you can get some lurkers along with those Hydras, but it's still versatile. It's gonna give Fiasco a little bit of time to respond, and that is indicative of what building?
Of several buildings. On the Zerg side, we've got the Spire. On the Protoss side, we've got those 3 additional gateways coming in. Not too crazy about that. While you're getting up to that third base, you really do need the production right next to it. We do have the lovely, lovely Dark Shrine. Win behind, boys. Fiasco is remembering the Day 9 jingles, and he is doing a little dance as he's going to be as annoying as humanly possible, I assume.
Which, you know what, I'm a little bit concerned about that DT decision. Yes, you can be annoying, you can kind of pull your opponent apart, but on the other hand, they're not going to be that useful outside of that. The Zerg player, JimRising, already has layer up, and I don't know how useful they're really going to be to make things like Archons, whatever, but there is a little bit of a poke into the third of Fiasco.
Lings ended up mostly just turning around. They will get eliminated if they try to engage, and as JimRising is going for his 4th base, he's also banking up a fair number of Hydras. We haven't actually seen any Roach production at all. It's been a pure Hydra composition. He's going to have 20 Hydras as the next round pops, and he'll have some Lings, so it really is a Hydra-Ling composition, a stark contrast to that previous game, where, as you mentioned, it was just Roach, 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 Roach. Oh, I'm going to get an Infestation Pit. Oh, I'm going to get a Hive. And I think he eventually got a Hydra Den, but never really did anything. Here are those Dark Templars. Will they actually be able to do anything? Fiasco needs to do some damage to even things up.
Yeah, definitely. He needs to do some damage, not only to even things up, but to also pay off for these DTs. Here they are, splitting up very nicely. There is no Overseers yet, and actually no Spore Crawlers. JimRising's got to be really careful, but there it is, 2 Overseers being morphed in. And these Hydras, once he's got vision, are going to be the perfect unit to get rid of the DTs. Here they are, though, 9-10 kills so far.
Starting to even up that drone count, even now leading by 1 probe to just a couple of the drone losses, and now nearly climbing up to 20 drone kills by those DTs. He might actually end up killing in the main base. Oh my word! The Muta and the Lynx were actually attacking the layer while the DT was killing off the gas. That was quite bizarre to see, because I was a little bit confused, but as it turns out, killing your own layer, pretty bad at killing off DTs.
Yeah, I also had the same confusion. I was kind of looking at, like, what DT survives that long? Like, the DT's got to be dead, and I was like, wait a second. Then attacking that. But those DTs did give the valuable information of Mutas. 5 Stalkers in the main, 2 Cannons, and Fiasco's going to be ready for it, but the natural base could be at jeopardy. Photon Overcharge goes down, beautiful blink forward, and that Mothership Core's got to be careful. That's the backbone of the Protoss defense.
Gets off a second Photon Overcharge at the third base. Going to be pushing away these Mutas. Easy peasy. 5 Mutas eliminated in this attack to go along with the 17 drones that have already been killed. More Hydras on the way for JimRising.
Yeah, even more on the way, and I'm a little bit afraid for Fiasco. I think he's committed way too many cannons in the main. If you want to really look at the main there, just how many cannons there are just below there, 5, 6, 7 cannons in the main, all kind of piled up, and that's good. But Fiasco has so many Stalkers, 31 Stalkers, which could potentially do what they need to do against the Hydras, but still, it's going to be a little dicey.
We'll see how good the blink control is. For now, it's going to be a big blink forward onto the Hydralisk. Going to be able to eliminate a fair number of these units. Actually, Muta's getting kind of the brunt of that damage. A couple of Hydras going down pretty much instantaneously. Good blinks back. Not absolutely amazing, but good enough to help deal with this army as the Hydra's getting spread thin. It looks like there is going to be enough Protoss here to crush on through. JimRising does have some units left, but he's just falling in numbers. The Remax is, of course, what we're going to be looking at for JimRising.
Yep, 14 more Hydras. I think there was like 9 Roaches there, but only now is the +2, 1 armor kicking in. Fiasco hit that timing with +3 attack. This is a deadly force. This many Stalkers with Blink. You can always make something work with Blink. JimRising's got to be super careful. He has very little static defense around this, and honestly, it's 90 to 7. It's 74 army supply, but the army right here for JimRising, it just looks so weak.
Especially in those engagements where, to that +3 attack, Hydras absolutely fall to pieces. Proxy pylons going to be coming down. The creep spread looking a little bit better this game for JimRising than it was in the previous game. And actually, we've got a bit of an awkward situation as Stalker's going to be stepping on to creep as, okay, Hydra's turning around. They almost were heading on out for their own attack, but they've turned around now.
Yep, I'd love to see the rocks in the middle taken down by either player, just deterring Nether just counterattack in a different direction. But for now, Fiasco moving in to the 4th base here, and he may be able to snipe it. Remember, he's got Blink, and JimRising is only heading in from one side. So this could prove potentially disastrous. Fiasco trying to kill as many as he can. Guardian Shield does go down, a kind of whiff force field here, but JimRising is getting that concave that he didn't have in the first engagement.
Will the upgrades be good enough as Stalker's starting to blink back? You mentioned kind of the force field getting whiffed as pretty much every non-Stalker unit is now been eliminated as Hydra's starting to tear apart the Stalkers. The blink control is pretty good, but it's not quite that top level control. As more reinforcements going to come in, this will be enough for him to kind of escape, but not enough for him to actually break the base.
Yep. Basically, I think Fiasco lost almost everything right there, didn't even get the base, so he's got to be really careful. Yet, on the other hand, both players have traded a lot and honestly killed a ton. For now, though, JimRising, he needs to take, I don't know if I'd say he needs to do damage, but he needs to take a hold of this game. He has allowed Fiasco to dictate the tempo for a little too long, and as a Zerg player, you never like that.
Well, that one engagement gained so much power for JimRising as Fiasco was depending so much on just those Blink Stalkers being able to deal with the Hydras, which we've seen in the past, but that wasn't the Blink control that we needed. A lot of times it's dependent on the Colossi or some other AoE option to help deal with that many Hydras. In this particular case, he has another opportunity to try to even things up. Ooh, Fiasco bleeding Stalkers here and there, just letting some of them be caught out and destroyed.
Fiasco is only making Stalkers here, which, now that I think about it, I like his mass cannon idea. I don't know if it was for a Stalker cannon composition, but still, again, only making Stalkers. He's not going anywhere with this. He's got to make something happen. Beautiful Blinks are able to kill these Hydras, but the Hydras, with almost a surround there for a while, really actually didn't kill that many Stalkers, but still, this composition is not that cost-effective for Fiasco. If JimRising would just remax on Roaches, I think he'd be okay.
Certainly those Blinks, I think, stepped it up a notch in that last engagement. I saw a lot more like individual Stalker Blinks versus group Blinks. We've got 19 more Hydralisks coming on the way, and one of the advantages that Fiasco has had is that kind of upgrade advantage, which is just surely, bit by bit, shrinking away. He's now going to be taking a 4th base, or at least trying to, but he's staying on Stalkers so long. He really, I guess, was like inspired by partying, like blinking a lot, and he was like, I am going to just do Blink Stalkers. That's the only thing I'm going to make. Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, well, there are other players that have made it work. For example, I mean, 2nd place last season, WCS Lilbo is known for his kind of Stalker sentry pushes, but those happen around the 10, 11, 12-minute mark. I don't know. He actually could have killed it right there, but he was hesitant. He doesn't want to run into a fantastic, amazing concave. But JimRising may be able to achieve a big concave. Vipers, no blinding clouds yet, nothing like that, but there's one blinding cloud. Sadly, whips it, not on top of the Stalkers, but JimRising in both players, actually, I think for this engagement, at least for now.
He's trying to control around those blinding clouds, which certainly are causing problems. This concave from JimRising is absolutely crazy as he's pushing the Stalkers back and back and back, forcing them into awkward positions and forcing them to move rather than fire. JimRising even yoinks one of the Stalkers, adding insult to injury. His Hydra army is crushing on forward.
Game 2, he did that gateway play. He did not add any robo facilities to really supplement it. So what I'm feeling is he likes that, and it must obviously work for him. Yet on the other hand, watching it as the commentators, it's kind of like, what you doing here?
I'm guessing that sort of build ends up working a lot better versus potentially some other Zergs, and we may actually be switching to NA. I don't know if I don't know if Fiasco quite understands that he gets to choose since he lost both of those games, but yeah, like we said, we were looking at Fiasco to try to mix things up. JimRising had very different builds from game 1 to game 2. The openings looked very similar, but after he got up to that 3 base mark, he definitely changed up his composition and his kind of goals of the game. Fiasco didn't change a whole lot. It was looking very similar to the first game. It didn't work in game number 1. Didn't work in game number 2. Yeah, I guess we're switching over to NA.
Oh, we are? Okay. But yeah, like we just said a couple times, he seems to just prefer that, which against maybe what composition would that work well against? I guess a like Muta Ling composition. Still, that's a little bit of a dicey thing to play on. Earlier on in those games, he did have the he didn't have Archons. He had, I think, Sentries with his army, but it is a strange composition. Maybe them German players, Cybert, I don't know. But guys, those were games 1 and 2. This is a best of 5, so you need 3 wins to walk away with the sweet $10. And I mean, JimRising, pretty close, 1 game away.
We're going to be getting this game underway. A long time ago, I actually had all of the map choices pulled up, but since we've jumped servers, I no longer have that. It might be Coda. I think that it is. Okay. But
I'm guessing it'll probably be Coda or Echo. They're going to come up sometime.
It would be difficult for it to be Echo, just because it's not in the map pool.
Cactus Valley.
Yep, so Cactus Valley, going into our first 4-player map, which I know a lot of people say does indeed favor Zerg player, and certainly with the change to Legacy of the Void, maybe those cross-map warpins will kind of, again, not favor as heavily Protoss aggression, but hey, this is still Heart of the Swarm, so Protoss still gets their lovely warpins. And you were asking, like, what build does that super ton of Stalkers, like, do well against? I think it's generally... Yeah, exactly. Like, you actually have to be across on the other side of the map killing stuff, not just building Stalkers in your own base and then hoping...
Yeah, definitely. It is much more of an aggressive favoring build, which we saw Fiasco kind of try to make happen. But the nature of Terraform, like I was saying, there's a lot of little hallways, and he had to commit to one and retreat on that one. He cannot. It's not easy to kind of switch gears and go attack another base.
So unfortunately, Hawkeye's StarCraft client did indeed crash, which is why it's just been a little bit of delay getting into game number 3. Potentially the decider game for this series, as JimRising is up on that match point advantage. He just has to take that one more game, which, Drenik, you referenced earlier. And this is always the case where it's like, some players, we've seen them come from behind in this scenario. Yeah. And Fight Night, Team Gravity's Fight Night, has kind of a history of very few clean sweeps or shutouts. So it's on Fiasco. You gotta not let this be a 3-0. We don't want to see a 3-0. We want to see a 3-2. Come on, man. Turn it up a notch.
Or you have JimRising, who has to prove himself right here. He's got the senpai, the sensei behind him. Man. And he maybe, I don't know.
Major's like sitting behind him, like, he's like,
you got
build
this.
More Hydras. Just
yeah.
He's like, get STEM, research STEM.
He's like, oh, I don't have STEM.
All right, so we are indeed back, you guys in the chat. We see you, we hear you, and Hawkeye has fixed everything, while Drenik and I just got to be talking. So hopefully everything is back to working, as Hawkeye does all the work, we do all the talking, and yeah, it's a pretty good setup.
It is a fantastic setup. It's always nice having that OBS just hanging around, and also being the guy that's like, psh, I can't hear you at all, idiot. No, but often happening to me with while we're waiting just for this next game, though, Cybert, waiting for our obs to get into the lobby, could you tell us a little bit about, again, Spawning Tool?
Spawning Tool is a replay analysis tool. It's probably the best way to put it. We talked about it a little bit beforehand, but it's a great way to A, browse replays, and B, look at statistics and information from the replays. If you guys want to try it out for yourself, literally just go to spawningtool.com and you can upload a replay. You don't have to create an account. You don't have to, verify your email or anything like that. You can literally upload a replay and check out what exactly you and your opponent did. And you got the invite, Drunick?
No.
I'm not actually sure who created that.
We are not in game. We are waiting in a lobby for let me see if I got this right, the third game in this best of 5, and it's going to be on Cactus Valley. Any thoughts, at least? I know we were hitting on it before.
I'm not actually sure who the host of this lobby is.
I assume Fiasco?
Okay, there we go.
There.
So we've got our observer in the lobby in just a couple of moments. Thoughts on Cactus Valley? I know in between that natural and the third base, there have been a lot of awkward engagements where some players are able to force field off an army from either the third base or from the natural, and then they're able to just kill the other base. So something like that potentially coming out from Fiasco. And then the other thing is, of course, like, you got warp-ins on the other side of the map. Can we see some big zealot run-bys? Can we see DTs be utilized maybe over at the third while an attack is going on at the fourth? We're going to be looking for those kind of multi-pronged attacking opportunities that can present themselves on a bigger map like Cactus Valley.
Yeah, which is kind of a cool thing, at least from Fiasco's perspective, that he really prefers gateways and gateway units. So just the entire harass ideology, I guess except for the warp prism from Protoss, he can do, and he can do well because he throws all of his production into a lot of gateways.
Will he choose to do that 3 games in a row? There's that saying that, like, if something is broken, don't fix it. If something is not working, maybe try to fix it. So, is he necessarily going to be doing that? I have no idea, but that is what we are here to find out, because on the bottom right-hand corner of Cactus Valley, ladies and gentlemen, give your energy to this purple Protoss player. He's Gravity's Fiasco.
And his opponent, hailing from Mexico. In the top right-hand corner, the pink Zerg player from Brawl Esports. It is JimRising. Oh yeah.
With a best of 5 on our hands, being up 2-0 as JimRising is now, feels so good. You're like, all right, I can lose this game. I don't want to, but I could even lose 2 games in a row and still be fine. Fiasco, on the other hand, he's up against the ropes. He knows that if he is going to be down and out, and we have an opportunity for this 10 pool to do some serious damage.
Yeah, this is probably the best situation for the 10 pool to go up against. It looks like, at least I presume, Fiasco is doing the gateway, but not only a 10 pool, but he is getting one gas, the other gas just for the extractor trick, but it's going to be a 10 pool with a pretty quick speed, and I mean, think about what it's going to go up against. If it hits there when the natural is down, there's most likely not going to be a wall, maybe a sentry, but if it is any units at all, probably going to be a zealot. Those lings are going to destroy it. For now, though, it's looking pretty good for JimRising.
All right, there's the 6 lings on the way. He was not constructing them first. We do have the gas already down for Fiasco, so it's not going to be like a 13 gate into a 17 Nexus, skip the gas. He should be getting that Cyber Core in just a couple of moments, and he'll have certainly a better shot at finishing it, at defending this off. It's going to be difficult, but he'll have a better shot at holding this off.
Yep, and I gotta remind you guys, Fiasco has not scouted at all JimRising. This drone is all he knows about anything. So this could come as a big surprise, at least as you mentioned, Cybert, Fiasco's getting up a wall. And here's his first probe coming out. It looks like it's going to be for a natural base, which maybe JimRising should wait a second. I don't think that'll happen, though.
All right. Oh, if he would have waited, the Zealot potentially would have been canceled. He was down there at the 300 mineral mark, hoping to cancel that Zealot. He did not. We do now have the 6 Lings taking down that pylon. That's a supply block. Very well done from JimRising. He's got 8 Lings right here on the front lines, and he only has to deal with this 1 Zealot for now. With that supply block, it's going to be hard to get out an additional Zealot. Mothership Core is here, can start building up that energy, but it's pretty much all or nothing. This 1 Zealot holding the line goes down.
Yeah, not only supply blocking Fiasco, but without the hopes of Gateway, the reinforcements are very, very small for Fiasco. At least for now, the Mothership Core is doing its job, but then again, JimRising is running it again, only 10 seconds away from Ling speed, and that's going to help him all the more to be able to kill drones. And here it is, 1 second away, and now it's active.
No natural expansion coming in for JimRising, just more and more Lings on that production tab. He's going to be working away, kind of running around those probes, but he's also at the same time chipping away at that cyber core. Zealot comes in, but there's pretty much the insta-surround by the Lings. Probes are here to help out, and the Zealot may survive for now, but a couple of more swipes, and it will go down right there. It gets eliminated. An additional gateway is on the way. The cyber core is being rebuilt as the first one is going to go down. And JimRising, he's looking all right, but he is 11 drones to 22 probes. He needs to do more damage.
Yep, he needs to do more damage. You're right, Cyber, but he's allowed Fiasco to take the time to get up the second gateway. Beautiful force field, but still, that is a photon overcharge. It's going to take a lot longer of a time since the Mothership Core wasn't late, but it was such an early attack that the Mothership Core was never allowed to get energy.
That was one of those timers that JimRising had. As long as the photon overcharge hadn't been popped, as long as it hadn't, gone up for that defense, he had that opportunity to do damage. As soon as photon overcharge is ready, the timing that he has, the window of opportunity is gone, and Fiasco is in such a better position. 25 probes to 17 drones, but the natural base is, of course, already on the way for JimRising. The standard 7-minute hatchery.
Yep, and that hatchery, he does need it purely also because of production. Because for now, he's pushed Fiasco in kind of a funny situation. He forced 2 gates out of Fiasco from the aggression, which at first you're like, okay, well, he had to make the gates, but because he survived with those gates, now he has the opportunity to counterattack or just have a lot of zealots.
Oh, Ling's going to be trying to run by into the main. They will get, into the main, but really, 1 Ling not going to do anything at all. And there's not a whole lot to scout. Now, the Nexus is coming down. A couple more Lings trying to get surrounds on Zealots, but with the Mothership Core and the Sentries, it's going to be hard for JimRising to do anything. You mentioned he's going to need the extra production. JimRising, he's going to need even more than just that natural hatchery. Goes for a relatively quick 3rd hatch after that natural.
Which is a bit of a gamble for him. He kind of hopes that, you know what, I've been aggressive and maybe my opponent is going to be scared to move out here because that is 300 plus the drone put into those hatches. For now, JimRising's not going to have that many Lings and only out on the map has 8. 4 at his opponent and 4 at home. So for now, Fiasco, I don't think he should move out, but then again, it's still a little bit of a gamble for JimRising since Fiasco has really preferred those gateways all through the series.
Maybe if Fiasco had gone up to 4 gates a bit quicker, he could have potentially made something happen, but it does seem like he's looking more towards that 2 base sort of play. He's adding on those probes 2 at a time. So nothing crazy aggressive looks like it's coming out of Fiasco. He's more happy to be like, all right, I survived. Now let's move on to the next stage of this game.
Yep, and it looks like, at least for JimRising, that next stage will come down to roaches. But JimRising's only on 1 gas. So that actually, exactly as I say that, there's the 2nd and the 3rd gas. So never mind what I was going to say right there. JimRising preparing for more roach aggression. And Fiasco, this is probably the one map. This is a lot better to defend than Bridgehead. A lot easier, at least.
Those 2 bases certainly have less openings to deal with for Fiasco. Killing that Overlord is indeed nice, and the Robo Facility going to be coming in for Fiasco. I'm curious what he's actually going to do with it, because he hasn't been really going Immortals, he hasn't really been going Colossus. So what is his choice going to be?
Well, it was Observer in game one, and that's what it's going to be for now, just to get a little bit of an eye on the army. And it's going to be important to see JimRising is only now going to Lair. Not only that, but he does not have a single evolution chamber down on the map. So this kind of the forge plays from Fiasco could be pretty good with that +1 attack going against a +0 JimRising.
+1 should finish up at about the time of this attack. And we do have an Immortal on the way. I think in the previous 2 games, Fiasco built a total of like 1, maybe 2 Immortals throughout both of those games. He has gone very light on the Immortals. Maybe he'll start to amp it up a little bit more.
Yeah, and that would be a fantastic move from him. Both players are relatively close in workers, appearing this is PvZ, where a lot of the time the Zerg is a lot ahead. But for now, goes saying both players are pretty close. Immortal's coming out. Fiasco has a chance, but he's got to be careful not to waste these force fields. Where honestly, JimRising was like, fantastic, you didn't attack me, this is great. I need to buy myself time for more roaches.
JimRising running into trouble with supply blocks multiple times throughout this game. Not only losing his overlords, but just not building them at the correct times as well. So again, Fiasco, other than the 10 pool that he had to deal with, this build is actually looking very, very similar to the previous 2 games. He's getting out maybe 1 more Immortal than he did in those previous games, but other than that, it's all looking very similar.
But now JimRising moving into the natural base, takes out that pylon, also deep the cannon. Now you gotta remember, JimRising, he has Burrow, he has Tunneling Claws. This could prove, there's actually no Tunneling Claws, but he's got Burrow here, which can heal the roaches. For now though, he's pursuing those Immortals. Those are the key to his demise. If he can kill them, he's gonna be fine.
Even if he doesn't kill them, we could see some very nice Burrow micro coming out from the roaches. There we go from JimRising. Where's the Observer? It was produced earlier on in this game. Just now it's going to be coming in. Now keep in mind, over at the third, we do still have those 2 links slowly working away at the Nexus. Eventually, it'll go down if Fiasco doesn't do something about it. Okay, there we go. He has secured that. Roaches unburrow. They're going to be trying to go for a bit of an attack, but of course, with this Observer, it is not going to work.
I always find the double Guardian Shield funny because it doesn't stack. And I know when I first started playing Protoss, it'd be like, haha, 10 Guardian Shields, what are you gonna do? And be like, oh, still only 2 defense. I don't know. For now, though, JimRising moving across the map, looking like he's gonna posture an attack into the 3rd base. Sorry, into the 3rd base. But Fiasco, he's being really prepared. He loves his cannons, and he plays a style that's like, I like being really defensive, yet my style works if I'm aggressive. And so he's kind of, I feel like he's kind of conflicted at heart.
He's conflicted at heart because one of his cannons did have to get canceled, as the second one may be getting cleaned up as well. This is a fair number of Stalkers, Immortals, Sentries, and Zealots, so he will be able to clean up these roaches if he's able to get on top of them. Right there, the force field seal those roaches' fate. And he's able to clean up that small attack. JimRising, he's starting to power up those Hydras, though.
Yeah, and this may be a little bit of a better composition than Game 2. Obviously, it did win in Game 2, but this time it's against Immortals. But on the other hand, there are Zealots with this force. It's kind of like a wonky, both of them, I feel like, are doing wonky builds versus each other. Yet, in the end, we have seen in Game 1 and 2, JimRising take. But let's see what he does really here in Game 3. At least for now, he's relatively safe. Added on a 5th base, added on a 4th base.
The 4th base is going to be very important for JimRising to actually keep that alive. One of those things that we've seen from, the top-end Protoss players that we don't see from Fiasco is counterattacks, whether it be Warp Prism, Proxy Pylon, Zealot run-bys, something like that. Fiasco, he's more of the defensive player. You mentioned he likes his gateways, and he doesn't particularly like attacking in these games.
Yep, a little Ling run by, tries to go down, but those 2 hero cannons do save the day. For now, though, I mean, JimRising, he's buying himself time. He's getting a nice creep spread across the map, building up his Hydras. And I just gotta say, when I was counting 5 bases, in my head, the Hydras were so clumped up together. I was like, it's gotta be a base. Gotta be a base, how big that is. And actually, both armies may inadvertently run into each other. Fiasco just opening up attack paths for himself and also defensive paths, and really cool. I think they're gonna just kind of randomly run straight into each other. Currently, JimRising it has +1, while Fiasco's at the same. Both players pretty close to +2, or at least
Their
Fiasco.
next set of upgrades, yeah. +2 for Fiasco, going to be finishing up in a couple of
One does
moments.
come after 2, or no, 2 comes
It
after
does.
1.
Oh, this group of
Yes.
Hydras may end up getting caught out of position. There's the blank forward by Fiasco. The second group of Hydras is in the completely wrong part of the map. He's going for the third base. He's going for the counterattack. He needs to do something after losing that much of his army.
In JimRising, he thinks it's going to be the third base of Fiasco. He smells blood in the water and is going for as much as he can. Takes out one pylon, but just focusing down the Nexus here. All the probes did evacuate, thankfully. JimRising now retreating. This is not only taking out the third base of Fiasco, but has also really pulled the entire army back, allowing JimRising to regroup and just making, interestingly enough, more Hydras. Now, I know this is kind of the textbook counter, but it's still like, I feel like maybe adding in some Vipers or Infestors just for the fungal or for that Blinding Cloud, which really starts to shut down this gateway force.
He did get the Infestation Pit, so maybe we'll see that a little bit later, as we do have Hydras now going to be engaging in mass with these Stalkers. Double Time Orb going to be going down on top of some of the Hydras, but there's more Hydras reinforcements coming in, some of them getting blocked a bit by those force fields, allowing Fiasco to jump forward with the Blink and finish off the majority of this army. GG. Fiasco, in the spirit of Team Gravity's Fight Night, says there will not be a 3-0. There will not be a shutout. I'm going to fight back, and I'm going to take a game off of JimRising.
Yeah, and right there, even though it was such early aggression from JimRising, it looked like it was going to damage down. It was looking good, but it just shut down the tech path of Fiasco by a lot. It put him behind in when he can move out, when he can really start to get the ball rolling, but it did not hurt his economy at all, which eventually he was allowed to take that third base. In the previous games, it's kind of been, okay, he takes 3 bases, and then it is JimRising trying to snipe that, which he did, but Fiasco was able to get a lot earlier and start to actually get that huge Stalker Zealot count, and he mixed in Immortals and Zealots anyways, so he did what I think he should do.
+2 Blink Stalkers are apparently a pretty good unit, especially, as you mentioned, when you mix them in with some other units. And certainly that last engagement, a bit of a mistake from JimRising. He was probably thinking, hey, I've beat this guy with just my Hydras in the past, in the previous couple games, and maybe I can do it again, but wasn't quite able to do it.
Works. Yep.
JimRising
Works versus Mass Stalker, but
yeah,
not versus Mass anything else with a little bit, or not versus Mass Stalker with anything else. I guess if it was Mass Immortal, maybe, but we'd have to see it.
One thing that JimRising did do, which I liked, was he killed the third base, and then he leaves behind like 3 or 4 Hydras, and it's like, if you plan on not engaging, that's fine, because that slows down the army, but then after that, he like shortly engaged, so at first I liked it, and then I was like, oh, well, I guess he kind of just threw away 4 Hydras, which you did actually need for the next engagement. Game number 4 is going to be on Iron Fortress, so we're going into another big 4-player map. And as we saw in the previous game, it might be a quote-unquote macro map, but certainly you can try to meta-game your opponent, go for a 10 pool, go for something super aggressive early on, and maybe it works out, or in JimRising's case, it turns into like a 20-minute game and doesn't work out.
Yep. We will be loading on to the Zerg. It's a racist map, I just gotta say that.
It is.
You have no option at all. It's just the Zerg symbol in the middle. Hopefully, JimRising will utilize that. He will get the power. You were asking the viewers to empower Fiasco. I guess JimRising will be doing his voodoo on the map instead of through the viewers.
It's possible.
Big gaps were bridged in that sentence.
Big gaps, very large gaps. That's okay, though, because we are going to be spawning onto the most Zerg-favored map we have ever seen. It's almost like having map hacks on this map. But in the top right-hand corner, our pink Zerg player, he's still up 2-1 in this best of 5, representing Brawl Esports. This is JimRising.
And his opponent, with the manners, just saying thanks for staying on EU to make this all work out a little bit better for me and his Blink Micro. It is the purple Protoss player representing Team Gravity and Germany. Guys, this is Fiasco. JimRising beforehand was also like, no, it's fine. It doesn't affect me. And Fiasco was like, no, seriously, we can do NA server. And he's like, no, it's fine. They're both being like overly nice. Like, no, you can take the server. It's the battle of gentlemen's.
That's one of the things that I really like about Team Gravity Fight Night. It's maybe a little bit more laid back than some other competitive matches that you'll play, but we get to see that kind of side of the players where they're a little bit more talkative. We've seen sometimes out of the Korean players, the most chatting going on in-game, where they're just talking back and forth, and it's like, okay, these guys are friends, or maybe they were roommates at some point, but they're a little bit friendly. We get to see more of that personality, a bit more of not just standard GLHF, I'm going to kill the other guy.
You should actually, I feel like you should type that in ladder. GLHF, I'm going to kill you, and you'll get the BM right back at you. That's the one thing. At least on this map, it is cross spawns. Now, definitely that can favor both players. You can say whatever you want about that. But it is cross spawns, which means any aggression from them, they're going to have to go not only across the map, but around. There is the circular pattern, which provides the A move of JimRising, he said he doesn't micro, going in the top side, and the A move of our Protoss player, the bottom side. So with those big armies posturing in the middle, they could possibly just go for some big base trades like we've seen before.
Could very well.
At least on this map.
It definitely could lead to some base trades, and certainly those do sometimes provide some epic moments between players. In this particular case, Fiasco is going to be going out for that probe scout. He's going to be heading on north, so we will have a general idea of where his opponent is in just a couple of moments, and he'll also be able to get an idea of what exactly his opponent is up to, and he'll be very happy to see that completed natural. He's going to be like, okay, you probably didn't 10-pool me. Or it was a weird 10-pool.
or it's like a 10-pool, doesn't make any lings, waits a little while, puts down the hatch, just a mind game.
Just hardest core, worst mind game ever.
Like, it's not even a mind game, it's just like, thanks man, you made me win.
Just like hamstringing yourself. Hamstrung.
That'd be terrible. I guess hamstringing. Stringing.
But, yep. Very good build. We do $20 an hour coaching if you guys want to hire us.
What? Very thrown off there. I was, says Yoda. But for now, Fiasco. Hey, shut up. Fiasco did only take one gas earlier on, allowing him to get a little bit quicker of a natural. I don't know if it's technically worth it. We'll have to see. But I kind of hope he does what he did last game, because that's the composition that works. Mass Stalkers, some Zealots, some Immortals. It really starts to work well for Protoss, at least Gateway. Not quite the Mass Stalker, but maybe he's just... This is the map, if he was to be super aggressive, that it probably could work on, because of the space between each base.
Couple of lings going to be getting cleaned up in the main base. JimRising will kind of have an idea of what is going on. He scouts around a little bit, and he gets the general idea of what's actually going down for his opponent. He's going to be like, oh, Forge. All right, so you're doing basically the same thing that you've done the last 3 games, just about.
Phew, I can go Mass Hydra, guys. Basically, just... he leans back and is like, Major, you got this. This is Zerg. You got this, Major. Whatever you be doing.
Like, all right, go to layer, build a Hydra den, build Hydras.
Yeah.
GG.
Hit V. Whoa. Hit H.
Actually, so the main difference for those of you who are sharp boys, you're checking that production tab. You're like, wait a second, melee. He's supposed to be getting ranged attacks. So very curious choice. JimRising. He's like, no, I'm gonna make lings and other things that use melee attacks.
Roaches
which I guess
do.
broodlings.
Yeah, and queens do.
Yeah, technically you are right. Like roaches and hydras both have a melee attack.
Yeah, they do, yeah. Melee is always decent to get. Like at the end game time when you're like, I'm at 3-3, maybe I should get melee. Just get melee, because it will end up helping you when you are like just putting your hand down your opponent's throat and you're like, yes, I'm this close. I can keep attacking you. Whatever, with that melee. For now, though.
A very graphic analogy.
For now, though, JimRising will spot that third base of Fiasco, which, like I was saying, the bases are far apart. Speedlings, fast unit. This could provide some pretty cool counterattacks JimRising has shown he can do. Or sorry, just general aggression. For now, though, he's going to try to cancel this third.
Mothership Corps going to be moving in for the defense, and these sentries, they're also moving in for the defense, have to use a couple of force fields to try to keep themselves alive. Sniping down those sentries is so nice. Canceling the third, even better. Ooh, JimRising, he is putting on the plays tonight.
Yep, and remember, that +1 melee has not quite kicked in yet, so these Lings even have more in their future to look forward to. They could maybe hit this. Actually, they could take out the pylons. If you look at the wall of Fiasco, it's got one cannon, and a pylon is only 200 health. You could potentially just focus that down with the amount of Lings here.
Yeah, those Lings are looking pretty scary. That +1 attack. Never doubt JimRising. If he wants to get +1 melee attack and he wants to go Lings, you trust him to go Lings. He's getting that 4th base as well. He's starting to power up, and we're into the Hydras. He's also going to be getting his +1 Carapace coming up relatively soon. And, you know, wouldn't be too wild if that 2nd Evolution Chamber was indeed for the +1 ranged.
Yep. You see that Overseer suicide he or she self? Wow, that didn't work at all. We did see the Overseer suicide itself and did it spot? Yeah, it's pretty much, it spotted the Twilight Council. Nose Blink is on the way, and for now, that's pretty much JimRising saying, like, Fiasco. Like, I was gonna keep it cool, I was just gonna keep talking, and then that's like the random attacked by a moth. Like, he's not like lag, one of the casters is lagging me. He's like, there's a moth, and it just wants JimRising to win. JimRising actually paid for the flight of one single moth to go to Germany from Mexico and, like, just annoy the crap out of him.
That is incredible dedication from JimRising. He's like, what? I got a show match for $10? Better spend $1,000 getting a flight to Germany. But
for a moth.
Yeah, for a moth. Very ingenious strategy from JimRising, you know, sending moths to his opponents. 3rd base, again, going to try to be established by Fiasco. He will soon have +2 and Blink to actually help him hold on to that 3rd base, so maybe now a couple of Lings won't be able to kill it off.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about JimRising's composition. I really like the Hydra. I think the Ling is a cool idea. That kind of early Ling put pressure did cancel the 3rd, but I'd like to see him actually get something out of the Infestation Pits. I know he doesn't have it yet, but he's already on 4 bases. He's got the economy, and I think it could prove pretty good versus the Stalkers, maybe a fungal something, because he has seen the Twilight Council. He's checked off, you're going Blink again, and I'd like to see him mix it up. Then again, he has made it work. For now, though, JimRising is just making sure he's got beautiful map control. If you look at his vision for a second, it's just, it's beautiful. It's erect.
It's looking good. It's certainly looking good with all of his Lings and Overlords. His creep spread is not fantastic. He's not one of those Zerg players that we look for that creep spread with. +1 Ling is going to be trying to get into the natural, but they will be getting chased away. There's a big Blink forward from those Stalkers, able to clean up all of the Lings. They were trying to make something cute happen, but nothing was able to work. Now, you wanted to see an Infestation Pit, but it looks like JimRising is like, yeah, I got it, but I want to get Hive. Duh.
I like your voice for JimRising. Like, I can't even tell you what was different about it, but it just made me feel like an idiot. I was like, wow, Drennick. wow, what about that? But yeah, JimRising deciding to go Hive. Now, neither of the players in this game, yes, JimRising took out the 3rd, but unlike the previous games, their main armies haven't actually clashed and butted heads. So this is providing for some decent or interesting deviations. Obviously, JimRising the Hive, but for Fiasco, going for that Templar Archives.
Finally, he is mixing things up. He ended up getting the Templar Archive in game number 1, but I don't remember him actually using it for anything. I don't remember it actually being like an integral part of his strategy. He really gets these other tech options. Like every time he gets a Robo, and then he builds like, you know, 2 Observers or something, and sometimes he gets himself...
Oh, the Mothership Core!
Oh, actually, it is way out of position. Throws down 2 Time Warps.
Double Time Warp.
Just because. I mean, might as well expend that energy, slow down those units a little bit.
That's when you teleport home and just really cross your fingers you won't die right when that's happening. For now, though, All the time warps are gone. No photon overcharge at the third base here, and it looks like JimRising is trying to go for a surround, but I don't think it's going to work. Half his army is not fighting the Stalker Force. Let's see how good the blinks are, Cybert.
Well, he's going to be fighting uphill, which can be a bit troublesome. The force fields on that initial attack were pretty darn good, but now he's actually going to be able to engage with the majority of his army. Force fields going down, and by that I mean just the one, but a flank trying to collapse in. Never mind, it's 2 Roaches and 2 Hydras. That's not a real flank.
Yep, not quite the flank that JimRising wanted to. He started to develop it, but Fiasco shut it down with 2 nice force fields. And then in that very final seconds, the couple final seconds of that attack, JimRising was not able to get the perfect concave, which he desperately needs. Pulled back his Overseer, did not have high ground vision, and now Fiasco again. I mean, he could potentially get like 100% surround, just called blinking forward.
He does not want to commit like that. He definitely is going for the good choice, blinking back bit by bit. He's going to be able to crush through this Hydro Roach force. Reinforcements slowly trickling in. I don't know that it'll actually be enough reinforcements to help break this. On top of that, some of these reinforcements are actually just move commanding and getting annihilated as Fiasco's stepping forward, and he's like, this is what I want. Just blink Stalkers and being able to micro.
Yeah, and also I just gotta say, casting is like say yes. It's improv, Cybert. You're supposed to be like, yeah, he could blink aggressively forward. It would be stupid, but he could do it. I don't know. Beautiful blinding clouds do go down though. Does blink out of the way. I'd maybe like to see fungal growth, but I guess the Vipers do provide that opportunity to gank or yank some units out of the way.
Get a good old midline gank on those Stalkers as you.
I mean,
might.
you do kind of have 2 lanes here. I guess you got a middle lane if you go through the center. This is basically League of Legends. Like,
Stalkers, all right. Before everyone like gets out their pitchforks to kill you, Stalker's going to be moving in towards the third base, and they're going to be getting pushed back a little bit. But Fiasco might actually be able to just take this engagement. It's going to again depend on those blinks. For now, they're looking pretty darn good, but will these additional units, a.k.a. the Vipers, throwing down those Blinding Clouds, be enough to turn the tide? It's getting pretty close, and the Blinding Cloud is doing so much damage. Indirectly.
Yep, JimRising, that Blinding Cloud, fantastic. Yes, it's indirect, but 10 more Roaches, 16 Lings coming off this. Both players have fantastic banks, but right now it's a little bit worrisome for Fiasco because he's not quite as cost-effective. Blink Stalker is still, he's almost made it cost-effective. Interestingly enough, he's actually lost less than the Zerg, but only by like 200 minerals.
That's usually like kind of what you expect, but it's more of like because Colossi are doing tons of damage, maybe Storms or Archons are doing tons of damage. Cybernetics Core actually gets sniped right there. You like Stalkers? Well, no more will you get to use them. Are there any more Blinding Clouds? One more goes down in the heart of that Stalker ball as he's trying to blink away. He's trying to deal with this Roach Hydra army. Reinforcements are slow to come in for JimRising. Can he break this Stalker ball? He's getting close.
I just gotta say, is like, has Fiasco been betting or something? I can only use Stalkers? Because he had 2,000 minerals right there. And decided not to warp in a single Zealot. Yet for now, Fiasco still, I mean, he's trying to play it, but I think JimRising just barely has gone through. 3-1. GG.
3-2-1. Drennock, you said it. It was not a 3-0. We are indeed looking at a lovely closeout there by JimRising. Able to take down the Blink Stalkers, but he was not able to do it in a 3-0 clean sweep. AKA, that's the Team Gravity style that you guys see here on Fight Night pretty much every single week. It used to be Sundays, but now we're actually kicking it Saturday afternoon/evening, or I guess it's actually like 1 or 2 a.m. Sunday morning for Fiasco. So a big thank you to him showing up, playing at odd hours. He started out on the NA server where he did have some ping and lag issues, but then we did switch over to EU. So a big thank you to him showing up, playing some games, showing us that, hey, Stalkers can indeed do it, and he's one of those guys that can make it work with Stalkers sometimes. I don't know that he's quite up to that like top level either top-level European, Lilbo, or like top-level GSL Protoss just yet, but definitely some fun games coming out from these two players.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that last game, like, I gotta feel like someone bet that to Fiasco you only use Stalkers, because he had 1,500 minerals in the bank, 9 gateways. Once he lost the Cybernetics Core, only warped in Zealots, like when it was pretty much, you can't do anything now. And like you wanna warp, you can warp in zealots, you know, like it's cool. Like we won't like throw you out of the show match for it.
I can understand why he didn't want to warp in zealots. I mean, I don't know that he had charge, so he hadn't really been focusing on like, oh, I'm gonna get zealot charge plus 3
Still
attack.
more than anything. I just mean like later on in the game when he lost all the stalkers, it was kind of like you could do something. But in the end, you know what? Fiasco is just the type of guy that's like, I'm gonna make something work. I'm gonna prove you wrong. Which
he certainly tried to. It didn't quite work out. So, guys, thank you very much for watching our first series of the night. Anyone who's been around for Team Gravity Fight Nights knows that it's not just one show match. It's not 2 show matches. We got 3 show matches here for you guys tonight. Coming up next, it is going to be Intense versus Peely Peely or Elhaim versus Peely Peely. Actually, Elhaim he had a power outage, and then he ended up getting his power back on, so he lined up Intense to take over. So now I'm not actually sure if it's going to be Intense or Elhaim. So one of these Terrans will be taking on Peely Peely in a best of 5 coming up just after this.